So we have a bunch of images that you may recognize from me talking about how to do a hockey before. Um, and we're going to try and do it electronically. There is a handout in the shared whatever handout folder. So go ahead and check that out too. It should walk through these steps basically the same way that I'm doing them and probably result in a better looking final product. So I'm going to start out in Lightroom. I've got all of my images here in Lightroom. They are fantastic because I'm a genius. When you bring stuff into Lightroom, that's the place you should make your basic adjustments like exposure, white balance, contrast if you need to, whatever. And you should do it across all of those images so that they feel consistent, right? I don't want to make one brighter and one darker, and then when I put them next to each other in the final product, one looks very different from the other. Does make a lot of sense. So make your adjustments, make them universally if you can. If you do need to crop, you don't really want to do that much with a Hockney because you're going to get like very different scales then. If you do need to crop, make sure that you're keeping that same proportion that you had in the original. If you go to the develop module, grab the crop tool, right there it says aspect ratio, and you want that to stay on original, which should be also the same as 2:3/4:6. But I'm not going to crop any of these guys. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab all of them, and I'm going to export them as JPEGs. So the reason that we're going to do that is we want to have smallish, easy to handle files as we're sort of assembling them into this giant thing. If I took 25 full-size, high-resolution 16-bit files and tried to combine them all together, Photoshop would explode, right? Too much information, can't handle it, too much processing power is needed, it's just blah. So don't do that. All right, so I'm going to go put them in the demo. No, that doesn't sound good. I'm going to put them in a folder called Hockney. Rename, I'm not going to rename them. The reason I'm not going to rename them is that I'm going to want to be able to go back and replace one if I screwed up somehow. So not going to rename them. File format, let's make them all JPEGs. Resize to fit. So again, we were working with 4:6 prints. That seems like a reasonable thing to keep doing. So I'm going to set it to dimensions, not width and height, right? If I set it to width and height, the things that I enter will be specifically the width and specifically the height, meaning that if I have an image that is this way and an image that is this way, they will be sized differently. I want to do it to dimensions so that it's the overall dimension of 6 inches and 4 inches, and if that means it's this way, it's 6 inches across and 4 inches high, and if it's a vertical shot, it is 6 inches high and 4 inches across. So dimensions, we want that in inches, right? Not pixels, not centimeters. Communists. 4:6 inches, and I'm going to put it at 180 pixels per inch. Again, that's our sort of minimum printing resolution, and that will be fine for what we're doing, right? We're working with all of these files. We don't need them to be that big. When we were outputting 4:6 prints before, the quality of those prints, right, like not that great. So the fact that we're doing them 4:6, 180, not a big deal. By the same token, I'm going to put them in sRGB. You can put them in Adobe RGB 1998. That's totally fine. I don't honestly remember if I have a spec on the assignment description. If I do, follow it. But sRGB, right? Again, the stuff we were getting output before, low quality, not a big deal. Quality here, I'm setting it to 85, right? Somewhere around 80 something seems fine. Again, they're small. We're combining them in this big thing. If we were making a 10-foot wide wall of this and putting it in a museum, we would probably do it in much higher quality. We'd probably do it with TIFFs. But if you were doing that, maybe you could afford a computer that can handle all this nonsense. Can I? No. So JPEG, 85% quality. Good. Sure. Fine. Why not? Screw it. Output sharpening. Metadata. watermark. If you put a fucking watermark on this, I'm gonna come to your house and kick your dog. I would never do that. Yeah, that all sounds fine. I am not that. What? No, that is not. What kind of stupid name is that? Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and hit export on this, except I've already done that. So I'm going to go into Photoshop. Once you've hit export, it'll export them all to wherever you put them. Important thing, pay attention to where that was. And then you can go ahead and quit out of Lightroom and open up. Do I really want to quit? I do. Open up Photoshop. Look, there's our website. So cute. Boom, Photoshop. Quit unexpectedly. Bugger off. Don't listen. You just told me you quit. Don't come asking me questions about it. So in Photoshop, we need to do a couple of things. We want to take all of our files and somehow bring them into Photoshop. Now, I could open them one at a time, right? Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, right? Like, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. Instead, I'm going to use Photoshop and let it do my work for me. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to go to Scripts and Load Files into Stack. What this is going to do is take a whole bunch of files, bring them all into Photoshop, and just put them in as a bunch of layers, right? We've probably done this before. I don't know. I've done it before. Haven't you? Everybody's doing it. Come on. Load files into Stack. We need to go browse to where our files are, right? We can't just bring any files we want. If you do have files that are open right now, I would close them out first before doing that, just so that Photoshop isn't having to like juggle all these things at once. Browse, P, desktop, Hockney, that sounds promising. There they all are. So I'm going to select all, open. So now I should have this list of all of my files right there. That's great. There are two boxes down here, which sometimes we would check in the course of human events. We are not going to check them. We do not want Photoshop to try and align these things into some kind of seamless panorama. We don't want a freaking smart object. Like, I hate smart objects right now in this context. So all that's good. Those are all the files. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Awesome. So here, boom, 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 boom. Here's my files. You're like, Brad, that is only one file. You're right. It looks like only one file, doesn't it? But it's not. If I come over here to my layers palette, you can see that I have roughly 11 billion layers. So each one of those files that I brought in was brought in as another layer. I can only see one of them because it's a stack of layers, and the top one is on top and covering up all the ones underneath. If I had vertical and horizontal ones mixed in, I would be able to see some of the horizontal ones sticking out, whatever. This is fine, right? It's all good. So what I want to do now is to make my canvas big enough so that we can start laying these things out. So if you think back to when we were doing the Hockneys with 4x6 machine prints, we were doing them on a large board. Right? That board was 20 by 30, something like that, relatively large. We want to do the same thing here by changing the size of our canvas. So we can do that by hitting Command-Option-C on the keyboard, or going up to Image menu, Canvas Size. And right now it's 4x6, right? That's the size of our little tiny pictures. I'm going to make it 24 by 36. That should give me enough space to lay stuff out. If you're doing a more horizontal composition, maybe you're 36 wide and 24 high. When we do this, we want to make sure that we do not have relative checked. So if I want to make it 24 by 36, if I have relative checked and I enter 24 by 36, it will be 24 inches wider and 36 inches higher than whatever it is already. So that would be 24 plus the 4 I already have, 28, 36 plus the 6 I already have, meaning 42. So I'm just going to say 24 by 36, not have relative checked, and hit make sure those are inches, by the way, important. And I'm going to hit OK. So now if I zoom out, you can see that I have my image there floating in a sea of emptiness, like my soul. So to start moving these things around, I want to go ahead and grab the Move tool, which is up here, or V on the keyboard. And then I want to be able to just grab pictures and slide them around. So I want to go up here to Auto Select Layer in the contextual menu for the Move tool, and make sure that Auto Select is checked and that Layer is what I'm selecting. That means that I can just start grabbing these things and moving them around and getting all the awesomeness I so richly deserve. Now you'll notice as I do this that each subsequent one is underneath the file before it. That's because they were brought in as a stack, right? So a stack has a top thing and a bottom thing. As we move the top things out of the way, we are seeing the things underneath them. Obviously, there are times where I want to move a file up in that stack and have it be on top rather than underneath. Now, I can just go over here and move my layers around, but that's a little time consuming. If I do have my auto select layer checked, there's an easier way to do it. And that is I can hit Command square bracket to move it up. You can see as I'm doing this, this layer right here is jumping upwards, or Command the other square bracket to jump downwards. These are here in, I don't remember where they are in the menu. Layer, ooh, look at that, I'm good. Arrange, bring forward, send backward. So you can see right there, Command, square bracket, other square bracket. If you want it to jump all the way to the top of the stack or all the way to the bottom of the stack, it's Command Shift, whichever bracket you want. So that's going to make your life a lot easier as a sort of quick key to be able to type. The other thing that you can do, I'm just going to slide this one over there because I don't want it. Do I want that? Okay, don't want that then. Oh, that one's better. The other thing that you may want to do as you go through here is to rotate stuff a little bit. So again, I don't want to be scaling things, right? But occasionally I'll hit something where I'm like, it would look a little bit better if it were a little bit rotated. I know there's a nose in here that I think that about. Let's see if I can find the nose. There it is. There's our nose. Hello, nose friend. I'm going to bring it to the front of the stack. I'm going to put it up here. And now to rotate it, I could go in and do edit, transform, rotate in the menus or whatever. Pain in the ass. I'm a busy man. I'm going to hit Command. I'm going to make sure that I have that layer selected. I'm going to hit Command T for free transform, and now I can do that without having to take my fingers off the keyboard. Hit return to confirm, and now we're good. So we've got some magic image stuff happening. Remember, as you're doing this, right, I'm just shoving these things off to the side, knowing that I will probably eventually go back in and delete them. You can, if you want, sort of delete them as you go. That's a little bit more difficult in my humble opinion. And we've already established that I am incredibly lazy. You can also be a little bit more precise about what you pull in the beginning. Sure. Why not? Okay. So there is our thing. Remember, you can click and select multiple layers at the same time by hitting those layers with the Shift key held down. But let's pretend that I think this is good. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all those extra layers by doing what I just mentioned, holding down the Shift key while I click on them. And then I can just hit delete. Boom. Cool. I can go ahead and crop this, right? C on the keyboard, or it is the crop tool up here. Hit enter on that, and now I'm pretty much good to go. I would save it at this point, right? I would do a save as so that I have this copy in case I'm like, oh no, I did something terribly wrong. But once you've done that, once you've save as'd that file, and if you were feeling confident, you could also then bring it back into Lightroom, make it part of your archive. I'm going to come up here to, I'm gumming up real good. The layers menu, click on the little hamburger menu, and say flatten image. I could also get to this from the layers menu, somewhere or other. Oh yeah, all the way down to the bottom. In both cases, that's going to collapse all of my layers, and my background color will be whatever my background color is. So if your background color is fuchsia, when you flatten your image, that's going to be interesting. So double check that, right? If you screw it up, just undo, do it again. If you screw it up and only realize 2 weeks later, hopefully you saved an unflattened copy like I just told you to. But yeah, there you go. Looks pretty good. Double check file size, naming, color space, all those things if there are any requirements. And otherwise, you are good to go with your magical digital David Hockney style print. Awesome.